Who are the Ndebele that Mzilikazi encountered in the Transvaal, and how did so many of them become part of his kingdom? Season 2, Episode 2, Mzilikazi with Ndzunza and Manala kings. Following the course of the Steelpoort River, Mzilikazi's forces arrived near present-day Rusenakal, the heartland of the Transvaal Ndebele, a diverse group descended from Musi kaMhlanga, an ancient patriarch said to have left the Drakensberg region around the 1600s. Musi had several sons, Dlomo, Mtombeni, Ndzundza, and Manala, among others, whose descendants would come to dominate the region north of the Olifants River. Some traditions even intertwine the Khumalo lineage with that of Musi, suggesting that Ndabezitha may have been either a son or grandson of Musi. While the precise genealogical links remain debated, what is certain is that the Khumalo and the Transvaal Ndebele shared deep Nguni roots. According to enduring Ndebele oral tradition, the historic split between the followers of Ndzunza and Manala began with a bitter succession dispute. As their father, the great King Musi, lay old and frail, his second wife orchestrated a plan to secure the throne for her younger son, Ndzundza. She sent the elder brother and rightful heir, Manala, on a ritual hunt for a wildebeest, Imbuduma, to honor the dying king. While Manala was away, the wife presented Ndzundza to the blind, ailing Musi, tricking him into bestowing the royal scepter and leadership upon the younger son. When Manala returned successfully from the hunt to find his birthright stolen, a fierce conflict erupted. But the dispute was eventually resolved by separation, as Manala led his followers away to establish a separate chiefdom. For generations, the descendants of the two brothers developed as distinct but neighboring peoples in the central Transvaal. It was here in the 1820s that their story would intersect with Mzilikazi's migrating nation. Mzilikazi's warriors encountered these very kingdoms, the Manala people under the rule of King Sibindi, and the Ndzundza people then led by King Magodongo. This encounter was a significant moment where destinies would become intrinsically intertwined. For Mzilikazi's own lineage, tracing back to the ancestral figure of Musi, held a historical connection to these very clans, setting the stage for a future where his burgeoning kingdom would integrate many of the Ndzunza and Manala tribes into his new nation. While much of our understanding of this period comes from oral accounts, alternative oral histories offer a varying sequence of events regarding Mzilikazi's early encounters with the Ndebele. One such account suggests a more direct, yet initially diplomatic, engagement. Instead of a broad conflict from the outset, we hear of King Sibindi, learning of Mzilikazi's army arriving north of the Vaal in the early 1820s. Mzilikazi sought and was granted sanctuary by King Sibindi. During this uneasy alliance, Mzilikazi trained the Manala youth in military techniques, but his intentions were strategic. King Sibindi, seeking to avoid conflict, initially offered Mzilikazi his daughter to strengthen their relations through marriage. However, this diplomacy collapsed. Oral tradition points to Mzilikazi, who, under the guise of a hunting expedition, requested some of Sibindi's best warriors, only for his own men to turn on and kill them. This incident ignited Sibindi's resolve. He called for a unified Ndebele front, including the Ndzundza, to confront Mzilikazi. Yet, the Ndzundza under Magodongo were preoccupied with their own struggle against Tulare of the Bapedi, limiting their support. Consequently, Sibindi, with his uncle Chief Mavula, led the Manala forces. They met Mzilikazi's advancing forces at Klipkop, near modern-day Pretoria. In initial skirmishes, Sibindi's forces found success, driving Mzilikazi's troops past what is now the town of Cullinan. This initial success was short-lived, however. King Sibindi would be eventually defeated and killed, and the Manala capital of KwaMnyamana was sacked. After this, Mzilikazi would then encounter Magodongo of the Mahlangu people of the Ndzundza clan, whose territory lay near modern-day Cullinan town. King Magodongo, much like Mzilikazi, commanded a formidable army. Recognizing each other's strength, the two leaders initially forged an alliance, coexisting peacefully for a period. However, this partnership was not to last. A falling out, the exact nature of which remains debated, ultimately led to Mzilikazi orchestrating the demise of Magodongo, a stark reminder of the often brutal realities of power dynamics during this era. These conquests had lasting demographic consequences. Many names from Ndzunza and Manala lineage, such as Mahlangu, Mabena, Msimanga, and Sibindi, became part of Mzilikazi's Ndebele, the composite identity of his growing nation. Other clans, such as Hadebe of the Dlomo line and Gegana of the Mtombeni line, also descended from Musi, were similarly integrated. These incorporations were not superficial. They reflected the systematic absorption of defeated clans into Mzilikazi's socio-political structure, a practice that would become a hallmark of his leadership. In 1822 or 1823, predating his notable encounters with Sibindi and Magodongo, Mzilikazi forged an alliance with Nklaba, who was a chieftain among the Nzunza and Ndebele, who had long resided in the vicinity of modern-day Middelburg. However, Nklaba and his adherents subsequently allied themselves with Ngwana Maseko and embarked on a migration towards the emerging kingdom established by Soshangane, a former general under the powerful Ndwandwe King Zwide, whose ultimate defeat had necessitated his top commanders like Soshangane and Zwangendaba to forge their own paths and found new states. In contrast to this northward movement, Mzilikazi elected to remain within the confines of the territory then known as the Transvaal. Following the rather tumultuous phase of his entrance into the Transvaal and the fateful encounters with Sibindi and Magodongo, Mzilikazi would eventually establish a royal kraal in this area. He named the place Ekupumuleni, meaning place of rest, situated not far from the life-giving Vaal River. During this period of relative peace, Mzilikazi's following began to grow, with other Nguni speakers settling in the area, drawn to Mzilikazi's growing influence. By this juncture, the demographic composition of his followers had expanded through the incorporation of Amahlubi, who had sought refuge in the region, fleeing the escalating conflicts associated with the rise of the Zulu Empire. The temporary capital established in this region, Ekupumuleni, place of rest, became both a physical and symbolic waypoint. It marked the first prolonged encampment of Mzilikazi's people in the Transvaal and the site of a pivotal demographic transformation. By the mid-1820s, Mzilikazi's foundation was set, but the central Transvaal was merely a prelude. His expedition was about to bring him face to face with the fierce Bapedi and, ultimately, to a clash with the Sotho kingdom under the legendary Mushweshwe.